The following is a paid political announcement.
Lifelong Democrat Diana Florence served for 25 years as a Manhattan prosecutor under DA Robert Morgenthau. She put criminals away, stood up for victims, and protected our streets. Now, Diana is challenging failed Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg as an independent because it's time for a DA who fights for our families, not criminals. That's why Diana has won the support of organized labor like the steam fitters, plumbers, and ironworkers, everyday New Yorkers who want a DA they can trust. Manhattan needs a DA who will do the job, prosecute crime. That's Diana Florence. Under Alvin Bragg, crime is up and prosecutions are down. Bragg doesn't prosecute crime. He plays partisan politics. Bragg failed to protect women and failed to protect workers. As a prosecutor, Diana Florence won groundbreaking convictions, fighting against corruption, domestic violence, wage theft, and daily working conditions. She's always been a partner of unions, community groups, and to cops like us. For Manhattan District Attorney, vote for Diana Florence. Diana4DA.com. Paid for by Diana for Manhattan DA.
The Red Apple Media Podcast Network presents This is Protecting America. Now, here's Emmy-winning journalist Rita Cosby.
Welcome to another edition of Protecting America. I'm Rita Cosby. President Trump wants to clean up Chicago, but federal law enforcement there are getting attacked by protesters. This as Democratic leaders are telling federal law enforcement to get out and actually creating no ICE zones. So how bad are things in the Windy City? Well, joining us now is Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith. She is the spokesperson for the National Police Association and a retired Chicago area police officer. Betsy, it's great to have you here.
Hey, and it's great to be with you. And I'm so glad you're talking about this because the entire country needs to understand what's happening in Chicago.
How big of a mess is Chicago?
Well, take ICE out of it. Chicago's a mess. It's one of the most beautiful cities in this nation, but because of the lousy leadership they've had in the last, 10 years, it's violent. The gangs run it, and it gets more and more dangerous really every day. It used to be you didn't go to the north side, you didn't go to the west side, you didn't go to the southwest side, things like that. But now crime is everywhere, and in beautiful areas like the Magnificent Mile, stores are closing, shops are leaving, and people are leaving. It's one of the most fled states in the nation.
I saw last weekend 29 shootings. And that's sadly a typical weekend for Chicago, right? I mean, it's one of the highest murder rates.
It is one of the highest murder rates, and yet 20 shootings is kind of low for us. Like, we wouldn't get real excited about that. 50, 60, 70, we start to get a little excited. But it's so sad that, the second largest city in this country is known for its shootings, for its gun violence, for its street gangs, and not for the food and the architecture and the people. The people in the Midwest are friendly, and more people should be able to visit Chicago, but it's in the news every single day, getting negative publicity for being a high-crime city who now wants to take on ICE and the federal government when they're just trying to do their jobs.
How bad is the gang problem there?
Oh, gosh, Rita, we've been battling street gangs in Chicago for the 50 years at least. When I was a young cop in the 80s, we were battling street gangs. And we kind of got a handle on it in the 90s. But as we got more and more far-left politicians in, frankly, they partnered with the gangs rather than fought them, and now we have them in every aspect of government and teachers. There are street gang members who are police officers.
Wait a minute. There are street gang members that are police officers. How did that happen?
Because the Chicago Police Department ends up hiring young people who have been raised to infiltrate. Sometimes they're able to weed them out, and sometimes they're not.
That's stunning. So how frequent does that happen? And just like you said, if you can't weed them out, what do you have, a known gang member who's infiltrating the police?
Sure. It happens, unfortunately, all the time. And, the men and women of the Chicago Police Department, the vast majority of them are hardworking people. Most of them are from the area. A lot of them were raised in Chicago, and they want to protect their home city. It's kind of like New York, where people who join that police department love that city. And they're just as frustrated as the residents are. But, they see what happens, and a lot of them have fled. That's why the Chicago Police Department is down at least 1,000 officers, if not more.
How dangerous is that? Like you just said, to be down 1,000 officers, that has got to be a very dangerous number for protecting the communities.
Well, it is. And what happens is when somebody calls 911, if it's answered, the phone is answered, then those 911 dispatchers have to triage the situation. Oh, you came home and your house was burglarized? Well, if the burglar's gone, we'll have to do a report over the phone or over the internet. Is somebody in your house? Well, get out and we'll try and get a car there. It's very frustrating, but it's typical of these large blue cities where they just don't have enough police officers to answer the calls, much less do proactive policing.
That's got to also be very dangerous also for law enforcement. Not only do they feel obviously demoralized, but that's also got to be physically dangerous when there's not enough officers responding to calls, as you know all too well, Betsy. You being there with the National Police Association, also, retired Chicago area police officer, you want to have as many people to have your back. So if there's a shortage of officers, you may not have the partner with you or another person there on certain calls. That's very dangerous.
It is very dangerous for the officers as well. And we also have in Chicago a mental health issue among law enforcement personnel. We have a higher than average suicide rate in the Chicago Police Department. And there are so many professionals that are trying to help with this, but because they are so short-staffed, they work long hours, and of course, they see the worst of the worst of the worst. And, can you imagine, Rita, going to 10, 15, 20, 30 shootings a week as a young patrol officer? You see things that most people never see and shouldn't see. And you do that week after week after week. It really wears on the mental health of these officers. And it's physically dangerous as well.
Also, as you're talking about going on these calls, a lot of time they're young people because we see the statistics coming out of Chicago. And often, whether it's like gangs or others, the gangs are using younger and younger people too as well. So that's got to be hard because it's often young kids caught in the crossfire or sometimes committing the crimes.
Absolutely. And the juvenile justice system in Cook County is, of course, it's lax. We do finally have a prosecutor in Cook County who's better than the George Soros-installed previous prosecutor. But juvenile crime is so difficult to deal with. We actually had in Illinois a law that when you were 17, we tried you as an adult no matter the crime. And, of course, after 2020, that went away. And now we don't prosecute juveniles properly. And like you said, the gangs use them. The 14 and under crowd are the ones doing the carjackings. And then, of course, we have the street racing and all that. And the gun crime. And the mayor, when you talk about gun crime, he wants to blame Indiana and Mississippi for the guns. He doesn't want to talk about the street gang problem.
You talked about the mayor with the guns. It was ironic because you're right. He started blaming other states and saying they're coming in and influencing Chicago because crime isn't bad in Chicago. But then there were a lot of people that came out that know the statistics, and I'm sure you do too, that a lot of them are from inside Illinois or from Chicago. He seems to not want to have any self-reflection, Betsy.
He has no self-reflection about anything. What people don't know about Brandon Johnson, he's not from Chicago. He's from the suburbs. The Chicago's Teachers Union put over $1 million in him to get him elected so that he would do their bidding. And then he immediately turned Chicago back into a sanctuary city. And in fact, the National Police Association last week, Rita, we filed a number of FOIA requests with the city of Chicago because we want to know, since Brandon Johnson has taken office and turned Chicago back into this sanctuary city on steroids, we want to know what this is costing the city, how many of these illegal aliens have committed crime, how many have been arrested. We've got a whole list of things that we want to know because, remember, when he got elected, he took in so many of Biden's illegal aliens, and he started putting them in the lobbies of the police district stations. I think you and I talked about this a couple of years ago. And they were living in district stations. They were having sex in front of children. They were tearing up the police stations and the bathrooms and this and that, and creating chaos, not only for the officers, but for the people in the neighborhood. He's now moved them to other places, but that's why we want 2 years of FOIA information to find out what is this costing the city in terms of criminality as well as money.
The following is a paid political announcement.
Lifelong Democrat Diana Florence served for 25 years as a Manhattan prosecutor under DA Robert Morgenthau. She put criminals away, stood up for victims, and protected our streets. Now, Diana is challenging failed Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg as an independent because it's time for a DA who fights for our families, not criminals. That's why Diana has won the support of organized labor, like the steamfitters, plumbers, and ironworkers, everyday New Yorkers who want a DA they can trust. Manhattan needs a DA who will do the job, prosecute crime. That's Diana Florence. Under Alvin Bragg, crime is up and prosecutions are down. Bragg doesn't prosecute crime. He plays partisan politics. Bragg failed to protect women and failed to protect workers. As a prosecutor, Diana Florence won groundbreaking convictions, fighting against corruption, domestic violence, wage left, and deadly working conditions. She's always been a partner of unions, community groups, and to cops like us. For Manhattan District Attorney, vote for Diana Florence. Diana4DA.com. Paid for by Diana for Manhattan DA.
And I remember when you and I were talking about this, it is stunning. And yet, here is the same Brandon Johnson, mayor, who came out just a few days ago and said he wants no ICE zones. In other words, ICE cannot come into certain locations. That's what he's trying to do. So much for the supremacy clause, of course, which is where federal authorities have jurisdiction over local or supremacy over. But it's astounding to hear a sitting mayor of a major city saying, we don't want ICE. We've got all this crime. We've got a lot of illegal migrants and many of them committing crimes. ICE is coming in trying to clean up the streets. And his response is creating a no ICE zone. What's your reaction to that?
Well, we're so frustrated with Brandon Johnson because he has saying so many inflammatory things about ICE agents. He said, this week, ICE lies, people die. He wrongfully stated that ICE killed someone when in reality what happened, agents were attacked by these suspects. They were boxed in. They had to shoot and wound one woman who turns out to be a school teacher, by the way. And then a couple weeks ago, up in the suburbs, an ICE agent was dragged by a suspect they were trying to arrest, and the ICE agent had to shoot and kill him. Who does Brandon Johnson blame? ICE. And he tells people on live television that ICE is going to go after all of you. He's telling people, even if you're here legally, if you're black or brown, ICE is going to disappear you. He's making it so dangerous not just for federal agents, but for his own officers, because people see Chicago police officers in tactical gear, Illinois State police officers in tactical gears, and they attack them because they think they're ICE agents. And his conduct is outrageous, Rita. It's borderline criminal.
Yeah, my jaw is dropping. That's what I'm thinking of, Betsy, too, because how are these comments not inciting when you have somebody in a position like that who knows better, and he's out there saying, that ICE is going after Americans. In other words, ICE is anti-American. And then you see ICE being attacked. How is that not sort of, just revving up the crowd? Somebody maybe who's unstable takes that as a cue. And this is in the climate, too, where, of course, Betsy, we've had so many of these attacks of late. I mean, look what happened just even, not even to law enforcement, but the assassination of Charlie Kirk. You see, President Trump had the 2 attempted assassinations against him. I mean, you have all these things going on. And politicians, leaders should know better, and yet they're fueling the flames.
They absolutely are fueling the flames. We just had, not quite 3 weeks ago, a young man climb up onto a building across from an ICE facility in Dallas, Texas, and just start wildly shooting a rifle. He killed 2 illegal immigrants and injured a third. His intention and his stated written intention was to kill ICE agents. That is directly because of the irresponsible rhetoric coming from people like Brandon Johnson. And here's the thing, too, Rita, when we talk about the law, ICE agents get the same protection that the general public does. And so when guys like Brandon Johnson say, we're not going to protect these guys, and we open the gates for you to attack them, we believe those are civil rights violations. Everybody gets protection, equal protection under the law. We're hoping Harmeet Dillon starts to take a hard look at this, and that's why 200 ICE agents are coming to Chicago from Texas to help out, because the federal government is allowed by statute to protect their own assets, and that especially includes their own people.
Yeah, and in fact, you could even go further and say that the federal government has a responsibility to make sure that their assets, that their agents, like ICE agents, are safe, and that they are protected. And yet, not only is it Brandon Johnson, you also have the governor of Illinois, who keeps calling ICE agents Nazis. They just throw out that word Gestapo-like tactics, Nazis. That was just repeated a few days ago from Governor J.B. Pritzker. So how dangerous is that you've sort of got a 1-2 punch between the mayor and the governor there? They both seem to be like trying to out-rhetoric each other.
That's so well said. And J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, remember where I was born and raised and spent the majority of my life. He is he's a clown. He has this unhealthy obsession with Donald Trump. I think part of it is Donald Trump has achieved things that he was hoping to achieve, and I don't think he ever will. He's a billionaire like Donald Trump. But he calls the ICE agents thugs, and he says what they're doing is more of Trump's thuggery. And now that Greg Abbott, a fellow governor, from Texas, has sent 200 of best National Guardsmen, Pritzker is calling them Nazis. So what this does is it frightens residents, it brings more protesters, and frankly, it brings more donations from these far left groups that pay for the protesters, pay for their lodging, pay for their matching signs. I want everyone, next time you see video of a protest in Chicago or a protest in Portland, look how their signs match. And Pritzker is helping all of this along. And yet, remember, Rita, right after Charlie Kirk was assassinated, we were all told everybody needs to tone down the rhetoric, but the left hasn't done it.
Introducing Meta Ray-Ban Display, the world's most advanced AI glasses. With a full-color display built into the lens of the glasses, it's there when you need it and gone when you don't. Send and receive messages, translate or caption live conversations, collaborate with Meta AI, and more. Be one of the first to try Meta Ray-Ban Display. Visit meta.com/Meta Ray-Ban Display to book a demo and find your pair.
Yeah, and that is what's stunning. I mean, to see them even amping it up in so many ways, it actually is really shocking. And there have been some pretty scary things of late. You talked about, obviously, the guy in Dallas opening fire. By the way, in that one, the thing that was incredible, you could also still see, even in the hail of bullets, our ICE agents were running towards the van to protect the migrants, even in the hail of bullets. I mean, these men and women, as you know, they're really heroes out there trying to help everybody, and yet they're getting vilified. They're under attack. And then just a few days ago, there was a Latin Kings member, one of the gang members there in Chicago, who put a bounty on the head of the border commander there in the region in Chicago. You probably heard about this. It was a $10,000 bounty on the person's head, on the commander's head, to kill him. I mean, how can law enforcement do an effective job when there's such horrible, serious threats? And then there were these apps out there that were doxing agents too, saying, here's where they live, here's where their family lives. Luckily, Apple took that off finally, but it is extraordinary to see the efforts, blatant efforts by some people to really go after ICE in a very serious, violent way.
You're absolutely right. And, I don't just have contact with law enforcement. I have contact with their spouses. And a lot of the ICE wives are terrified. And that's why a lot of the ICE agents end up taking an assignment in another city so that they keep their family away from these protesters. So a lot of these ICE agents you'll see in places like Chicago or Portland, they actually live elsewhere, many states away, because they're so worried about the safety of their families. And yet we had what? We had Gavin Newsom try and pass a law that said ICE agents couldn't, cover their faces or do other things so that they couldn't be doxxed. And then you had this guy running for attorney general in Virginia. It just came out today,
right,
that he's talking about dead cops. So, I mean, it's getting so dangerous to be a law enforcement officer, not just if you're a federal agent, but all around the country. It's dangerous enough, Rita, and you've been talking about this forever, but now we've got politicians, political leadership who are trying to make it more dangerous for cops to just enforce the laws that politicians put in place. ICE doesn't make these laws, Congress does, but nobody's trying to attack Congress. Nobody's protesting Congress. They're trying to stop federal agents from doing what they're supposed to do and what we, the voters, gave the president as a mandate.
No, you're right. This is what citizens want. This is what good citizens want, is their communities cleaned up. And many of them are very thankful for law enforcement. But you're right. They're playing, a lot of other ones are playing a very dangerous political game. And I think, sadly, it may get more and more dangerous. I'm praying for our men and women out there every single day. Mm-hmm. You know how much I appreciate them. And by the way, everybody, be sure to subscribe and share to this very powerful podcast. Sergeant Betsy Brantner Smith, you are terrific, and thank you for all you do. I always love your perspective, and we're so appreciative for the men and women that are out there on the streets protecting all of us. Thank you, Betsy.
Thanks for having me, Rita. We appreciate it so much.
And everybody, I'll be back soon with another great edition of Protecting America. And of course, you can catch me every weeknight, 10 p.m. to midnight on the legendary WABC Radio. This is Rita Cosby, and thanks for all you do to protect America.
following is a paid political announcement.
Lifelong Democrat Diana Florence served for 25 years as a Manhattan prosecutor under DA Robert Morgenthau. She put criminals away, stood up for victims, and protected our streets. Now, Diana is challenging failed Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg as an independent because it's time for a DA who fights for our families, not criminals. That's why Diana has won the support of organized labor, like the steam fitters, plumbers, and ironworkers, everyday New Yorkers who want a DA they can trust. Manhattan needs a DA who will do the job, prosecute crime. That's Diana Florence. Under Alvin Bragg, crime is up and prosecutions are down. Bragg doesn't prosecute crime. He plays partisan politics. Bragg failed to protect women and failed to protect workers. As a prosecutor, Diana Florence won groundbreaking convictions, fighting against corruption, domestic violence, wage theft, and daily working conditions. She's always been a partner of unions, community groups, and to cops like us. For Manhattan District Attorney, vote for Diana Florence. Diana4DA.com. Paid for by Diana for Manhattan DA.